When was the last time you experienced a moment that was truly free from worry? Not pretending to be strong, not smiling to hide the tiredness inside, but a moment when you genuinely felt lighter, fully present, and free. So many of us are living in a constant state of waiting, waiting for things to get better, waiting for work to feel less heavy, waiting for life to fall into the right shape, waiting for everything to finally become perfect before allowing ourselves to feel at peace. But that day never comes, because life is always unfinished. There is always something left undone, always something pulling at our attention. In the teachings of the Buddha, peace is not something that exists in the future. It does not come from fixing your life completely. Peace is already here in this very moment when you stop running, stop resisting, and return to what is actually happening. You do not need to resolve everything to feel peace today. If you are tired of living inside your thoughts, these lessons may be the gentle reminder your heart has been waiting for. Lesson 1. The present moment is the only safe place. One of the foundational truths in the teachings of the Buddha is this: true peace and true freedom exist only in the present moment. It may sound simple, but when this truth truly sinks in, it can completely change the way you live. The past has already passed. It survives only in memory. The future has not yet arrived. It exists only in imagination. And yet, most human worry does not live where we actually are, but where we have never been. Worry pulls you away from the present. It sends your mind wandering through imagined scenarios, endless what-if questions, and the worst possible outcomes. Even when there is no real danger in front of you, your body reacts as if there is. Your heart beats faster, your chest tightens, your breath becomes shallow. All of this happens because of a future that has never occurred. This is the power of unrecognized thought. It can make you suffer through events that exist only in your mind. When you live in worry, you are living in a future that is not real. Instead of experiencing the present that is, you lose the peace that was already here. But the moment you bring your attention back, something begins to shift. When you notice your breath moving in and out, when you feel your feet touching the ground, when you listen to the ordinary sounds around you, the mind begins to slow down. The body starts to soften. The present moment is not just an idea. It is a place. It is a refuge. It is the only space where life is actually happening. Everything else is simply a story created by the mind. And this is the most important part. Worry cannot survive when you are truly present. It feeds on imagination. It dissolves when it meets reality. The mind may still try to pull you back into worry. It may whisper about tomorrow and the unknown, but you can gently respond by saying that right now you do not need to solve tomorrow. Right now you are safe. You are breathing, and that is enough. As you practice returning to the present again and again, it becomes your anchor. It becomes your home, the safest place to return to. And the more you return, the more you realize that you were never meant to live in fear of the future. You were meant to live fully in the freedom of this moment. Lesson 2. Acceptance is not giving up. Many people confuse acceptance with weakness. We often think that if we accept something painful, it means we have stopped trying, that we have failed, or that we have given up hope for change. And so we resist what is happening. We tense up. We force ourselves to be stronger, to endure better, to fix everything immediately. But in the teachings of the Buddha, acceptance carries a very different meaning. Acceptance is not surrender. It is giving yourself permission to breathe. Acceptance is the act of laying down the burden of trying to control everything around you. When life brings loss, hardship, separation, or things you did not want, your instinct is to fight back. You ask why this happened. You wish it had been different. You blame yourself or blame others. That resistance creates tension inside you, and that tension becomes suffering. Not because the situation itself is too heavy, but because the mind keeps struggling against reality. Acceptance means looking directly at what is and saying, this is what is happening right now. It does not mean you agree with it. It does not mean you are not hurting. It does not mean you no longer care. It simply means you stop pretending it is not real. You stop wasting energy wishing the past were different when the present is already here. And when you stop that resistance, something very natural begins to happen. The mind starts to soften. Think about a relationship that has ended. The initial pain is real, but instead of allowing yourself to grieve, you keep analyzing, replaying, imagining different outcomes. You relive the moment again and again, as if worrying hard enough could change what has already passed. But the more you resist, the more you suffer. Acceptance is the moment you stop arguing with reality and allow yourself to feel the sadness without judgment and without shame. That is where healing begins. Acceptance does not prevent change. It simply ends the inner war. When you no longer need everything to go your way in order to feel at peace, you begin to see the path ahead more clearly. Peace is not a reward for favorable circumstances. Peace arises when you stop demanding that life follow your plans. In that space, you can move forward with clarity, with trust, and with a lighter breath. Lesson 3. Not every thought deserves belief. The human mind is a very subtle tool. Through it, we can think, learn, plan, and understand the world around us. But that same mind can also become noisy and overwhelming. Each day, countless thoughts pass through your head. A few are useful. Many simply repeat old patterns, and a great number of them arise from fear, doubt, and insecurity. One of the important understandings in the teachings of the Buddha is this: you are not your thoughts. Just because a thought appears does not mean it is true, and it certainly does not mean you must believe it or act on it. Worry often begins with a very small thought, a vague question, an untested assumption. What if something bad happens? What if I am not capable enough? Before you realize it, the mind has built an entire story. The body begins to react. A sense of unease spreads, not because reality is dangerous, but because you have believed in a scenario that has never happened. This is the mental loop of anxiety. When you believe every thought that appears, you are pulled away from the present and into a world created by your own mind. Buddhism uses a very simple image to help us understand this. The mind is like the sky. Thoughts are like clouds. Some clouds are light and pass quickly. Some are heavy and dark. But no cloud lasts forever, and no cloud can define the sky. The sky remains vast and quiet no matter how the clouds change. In the same way, the awareness within you is much deeper and steadier than the thoughts that come and go. When you begin to observe your thoughts instead of reacting to them, a space is created. You are no longer swept away immediately. You start to see thoughts as temporary events in the mind, not absolute truths. So when the mind says that you are not good enough, that you cannot get through this, that everything is about to collapse, you do not need to panic or argue. You can pause, take a slow breath, and gently remind yourself that this is just a thought. It is not reality. That simple recognition alone is enough to break the loop before it carries you further. With regular practice, you create a healthy distance between yourself and your thoughts. Thoughts still appear, but they no longer control you as they once did. You notice them, you let them pass, and you return to the stillness that already exists within you, not because life no longer has problems, but because you are no longer pulled around by every story your mind creates. Lesson 4. Impermanence reminds you that this fear will not last forever. One of the most profound and liberating teachings of the Buddha is the truth of impermanence. Everything in this life is constantly changing. No emotion stays still. No situation remains the same. People change. Relationships change. The body changes. Even what you are feeling right now is shifting from moment to moment. And yet, when anxiety or fear arises, it often feels as though it will last forever, as if it has taken over your entire life. When you are inside fear, the mind easily whispers that things will always be this difficult, that this heavy feeling will never leave. But take a moment to look back at your own past. There were times when you felt lost, anxious, broken, convinced that you could not make it through. At those moments, the emotions were intense. They were real. They were painful. And yet, here you are today. You moved through those phases. You survived them. And now, those pains that once felt unbearable exist only as memories. This reveals an important truth. Emotions, no matter how strong, are temporary. Even the deepest pain has its own lifespan. When you begin to see emotions this way, especially anxiety and fear, your relationship with them changes. You no longer identify yourself as the emotion. Instead of saying, "I am an anxious person," you begin to recognize that you are experiencing anxiety. This small shift in perspective creates a powerful distance. You are no longer defined by the emotion. You are simply observing a state that has arrived and will eventually pass. When we forget impermanence, we panic. We believe that everything will always be unstable, always difficult, always painful. But when we remember impermanence, space opens between us and our suffering. We no longer see it as who we are, but as a visitor that has come for a while and will leave. Just as the rain does not stay forever, just as the night gives way to dawn, even the heaviest emotions soften with time. This understanding does not ask you to deny your pain. It allows you to meet it with more patience and gentleness. You stop forcing yourself to be okay too quickly. You stop trying to push emotions away. Instead, you learn to sit with discomfort without fearing it. You let it move through you like a wave, rising, reaching its peak, and then receding. You breathe with it rather than fighting against it. And when worry appears, when your chest tightens and your mind begins spinning stories about what might happen, you can pause for a moment, place a hand over your heart, gently remind yourself that this is only a moment. It will not last. I have moved through many moments like this before, and I will move through this one as well. When you stop fearing your own fear and begin trusting the impermanent nature of all things, a deep inner stillness begins to open, a kind of peace that no storm can easily shake. Lesson 5. Let go of control that was never your burden to carry. One of the greatest sources of anxiety in life comes from the illusion of control. We believe that if we think hard enough, plan carefully enough, and prepare long enough, we can prevent bad things from happening. We tell ourselves that if we stay alert at all times, we can avoid pain, keep everything on track, and make sure everyone is okay. At first, this belief seems reasonable, but over time, it quietly becomes a weight pressing down on the mind. Because no matter how hard you try, there will always be things beyond your reach. Other people's choices, unexpected events, circumstances that shift without warning, and sometimes even your own emotions refuse to follow your plans. Trying to control everything does not bring peace. It creates tension. It feeds anxiety. It keeps you living in a constant state of vigilance, as if life were something that must be guarded every moment. When life is built on the fear of losing control, freedom slowly disappears. In the teachings of the Buddha, there is another way. This path does not ask you to give up or become indifferent. It invites you to act with awareness and wisdom, without clinging to the outcome. This means doing your part fully, being present in each action, offering your attention and energy to what truly matters, and when your part is done, knowing how to release the rest. Imagine life as a river. You cannot force the river to flow the way you want, but you can learn how to swim with it. There are calm stretches. There are fast and turbulent currents. Sometimes the river turns in a direction you never expected. Trusting the flow does not mean letting go of care. It means no longer suffering over what was never yours to control. Letting go of control is not weakness. It is maturity. It is a form of strength that comes from understanding that peace matters more than perfection. Think of the nights you have lain awake, replaying old conversations, worrying about decisions already made, or fearing outcomes that have not yet happened. How much energy has been drained, how much tension has been created, and yet nothing truly changed except your exhaustion. The future is not shaped by worry. It is shaped by presence, by action, and by trust. When you see this clearly, your grip begins to loosen, your breath becomes easier, your steps through life become lighter. Letting go of control also means releasing the idea that you must be perfect for things to work out. You accept that mistakes will happen, plans will shift. Uncertainty is a natural part of the journey, and instead of resisting this truth, you make peace with it. You trust that life has its own intelligence. You return to yourself and ask whether you are doing your part with presence and care. If the answer is yes, then allow the river to keep flowing. Lesson 6. Speak gently to the voice inside you. Most of us carry an inner voice that worries, doubts, and prepares for the worst. It often appears when you are alone, when everything grows quiet, or when the future feels uncertain. That voice whispers questions about whether you are capable enough, whether you can endure this, whether everything is about to fall apart. Many people dislike this voice. They try to silence it. They blame themselves for worrying too much, for not being stronger. But in the teachings of the Buddha, healing does not come from fighting yourself. That anxious voice was not born to harm you. In its own way, it believes it is protecting you. It tries to prepare you for pain, loss, and disappointment. But when it is not listened to or understood, it becomes louder, not because it is powerful, but because it is afraid. Like a child who does not yet understand the world, it cries louder when it feels abandoned, and the more it is scolded, the more it trembles. Healing begins when you change the way you relate to this voice. Instead of pushing it away or feeling ashamed of it, you begin to approach it with gentleness. You do not have to believe everything it says, but you can acknowledge that it is afraid. You can softly tell yourself that you know it is worried, that you know it is trying to protect you, and that right now you are safe. Imagine sitting beside a frightened child. You would not shout for them to be quiet. You would not tell them they are weak. You would sit down at their level, lower your voice and stay with them. You would say that everything is okay and that you will take things one step at a time. When you begin to speak to yourself in this way, something important happens. The anxious voice no longer needs to scream to be heard. It begins to soften. This does not mean you allow anxiety to run your life. It means you learn how to be with it without being controlled by it. You stop asking why you are like this. You begin to say that it is okay to feel this way. And even with fear present, you can still keep moving forward. This is the essence of compassion in Buddhism, not only directed outward, but turned inward toward your own heart. As you practice this gentleness each day, your relationship with your mind slowly changes. You become a safe place for yourself, not because life has become easy, but because you no longer turn away from your fear. And when you can sit beside fear without running from it, it begins to lose its power. You are no longer controlled by it. You become steadier, softer, and more peaceful from within. Lesson 7. Joy is not a reward for a perfect life. Many people live their entire lives believing that happiness is something they must achieve. They tell themselves they will feel joyful when things calm down, when work becomes more stable, when they are more successful, when all their problems are finally resolved. They place joy somewhere ahead, like a reward that appears only after life has been neatly arranged. But that day rarely comes, because life is always unfinished. There is always uncertainty. There are always things that remain imperfect. If you wait until everything is completely okay before allowing yourself to feel happy, you will be waiting for a very long time. In the teachings of the Buddha, joy is not something that comes from luck or ideal circumstances. It is not something that appears only when life is free of difficulty. Joy is a daily practice. It is the choice to return to the present moment. It is the decision to live with life as it is rather than as you wish it to be. True joy is not loud. It is not always laughter or excitement. Sometimes joy is very quiet. It is there when you pause and feel the warmth of sunlight on your skin. When you hear the wind gently moving through the trees. When you sip a cup of tea in silence. When you notice your chest rising and falling with each breath. These are very small moments, yet it is through these moments that happiness enters, not because your life has become perfect, but because you have chosen to be present with it. One of the great shifts in Buddhist understanding is realizing that you do not need to fix your entire life in order to feel peace. You do not need to keep believing that happiness belongs to the future. You do not need every fear to disappear before you can smile. You do not need to have all the answers to feel at ease. You do not need every wound to be fully healed before you allow yourself to soften. Joy is already here in this moment. And when you allow yourself to feel it, even while life remains imperfect, something important begins to happen. You begin to reclaim your strength. Practicing joy means teaching the mind to notice what is good, even on difficult days. It means choosing gratitude when life does not go as planned. It means softening, slowing down, and being gentler with yourself. It means honoring the moments that bring quiet, calm. Over time, this becomes more than a practice. It becomes a way of living. The worries that once felt heavy begin to ease, not because you force them away, but because your mind has learned to see differently. You begin to understand that life does not need to be perfect to be meaningful, that love can still fill your heart even when not everything has been resolved, and very often the deepest joy does not come from doing more but from simply being awake, present, and open to what this moment is offering. When you welcome joy in this gentle way day after day, you realize that happiness was never gone. It has always been here, waiting for you to pause and notice. And in that quiet noticing, life begins to change. You no longer live from fear, no longer from the need to control, but from a place of gratitude, awareness, and a quiet, steady peace.